Well, welcome everybody to another fantastic episode of Playing with Perspective, the Suspended Animation Podcast. And I've got a fantastic show and a fantastic guest for us today. And it's going to be a show that hopefully will be very, very fitting to the situation and the environment we're in. And hopefully a show that everybody's going to get a lot of good ideas and tips and strategies to help them prepare themselves for the future. So our guest today is Heather Mitchell, and Heather is a holistic financial well-being consultant, coach, and mentor. She has been an investor and money manager all her life, thanks to a forward-looking father and obsessive saver of a mother. She has also had a 20-year career as a quantitative researcher, crunching serious amounts of numbers and making sense of trends. She's invested through all sorts of economic storms, such as the dot-com crash, the GFC, several wars and other viruses, and has developed a holistic strategy for all situations. So welcome, Heather. How are you doing?
I am very good, thank you, Darren, in this very strange time.
Yeah, it is a very strange time. Absolutely. So I thought before we get into, the topic of today, and I'm really looking forward to having a chat, and actually I don't think I mentioned what the topic of today is, but topic of today is practical steps that people can implement to get the foundations right now to be prepared for the future. So I think it's a really, really interesting discussion, and I think it's important that we do this now. But before we get into that, Heather, just tell us a little bit about you and your journey, and how you came to be what you're doing at the moment.
Yes, well, it's been quite a long journey. And as I said, I've been an investor my entire life. My dad was very forward thinking. He involved me as a little 6-year-old. I remember being involved in decisions about stocks and shares and all the different things that he was investing in. So I really sort of picked it up by osmosis just by being around him. So it's just been really great that he was just that forward thinking. He just was that kind of person. So and I've just been taking that through my whole life, really. And it's quite interesting because in England, you don't really talk about money. So I used to invest in secret. I never really told anybody, but I just loved it so much. But just did it in the secret. So I'm kind of out now. I am an investor.
Did you have a lot of little piggy banks at home in your room?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I did. Yeah.
You started from young, huh?
I did, yeah. And then my parents taught me about compound growth when I was about 10 or something. And I remember looking around with computations in my bedroom. I think I was quite an odd kind of child, really.
I love it. And obviously now you're the founder of an organization called Raw Energy, is that right?
That's right, yeah. So it's actually a holistic wellbeing company. So we look at the whole person. So it's all about wellbeing from a very broad perspective. And then my particular specialism is financial wellbeing. And we look at, how finances make the difference between a sort of well person, and wellness and mental health and financial wellbeing go so closely together. So that's kind of where we're coming from.
Absolutely. So, obviously it's a crazy time. It's a bit of mayhem, and everybody's very uncertain, and things are changing from one day to the next. It's all a bit overwhelming and surreal at the same time. But what insight can you give us for what we should be prioritizing now, just in terms of pure reaction and just getting back into our homeostasis, really?
Yeah, as you said, it's an unprecedented time. The speed and the extent of the virus disrupting our entire lives is incredible. The world has pretty much stopped now. Yep. Industries, whole industries have changed. Hospitality's ground to a halt. Tourism, events, therapists, they're all just sort of just stopped, and social isolation is there. So people are really hurting and really scared. So I'm just kind of glad that we are talking right now, because I just want people to really get some understanding of, where things are and what they can really do to be able to get onto a firmer footing. And survive this period and come out thriving. You know, that's kind of my intention, is to just get the message out, to sort of get people to thrive. And really there are some steps that people can take right now that they can, you know, just make a difference in their own particular lives.
Right.
So, you know, so the first thing really is to start with a clear head, and that might sound a bit glib, you know, at the start of it, but actually, you know, if you're feeling really stressed and anxious and in panic mode, then you're kind of in your reptilian brain and you're not really in a particular point to make big decisions. So just some 4, 7, 8 breathing in for 4, holding it in for 7, and then breathing out for 8 a few times. Just really gets you back to being a human being again, which is really what we need at this particular time. Then really good place to start is to look at your numbers. Now, you know, this may be not really for people. Some people don't like looking at numbers, but really numbers gives you clarity, and really clarity is what we need right now. And at Raw Energy, we like to look at life like a business. So we encourage people and we help people to put together some kind of business documents that for your own life. So we put together things like a P&L statement, a profit and loss. So we list out all the things that are coming in and going out, and then the difference between them is your profit for the month. And then we also look at your balance sheet, which is your assets, the things that you own, and then the liabilities, the things that you owe, and then one minus the other is your overall net worth. So by doing all that, one of the things that you will do is to list out all of your expenses for the past 1 to 3 months. And that is really, really eye-opening, because you really get to see what it is you've been spending and really what your lifestyle is all about. Yep. And then once you've got that, and you can get that list, by the way, from credit card statements, from bank statements, from old receipts. So just try and list out everything that you could possibly think of that you spent in the last period. And then once you've got that list, you know, it's great, because then you can really kind of classify it and see what you're actually spending. And the one way we like to do it is to do it in terms of what things are absolutely essential that you could not live without. What are the things that are nice to have that perhaps you could, but they give you a lot of pleasure? And then what are the things that you don't actually need at all?
Yep.
So once you've got all that list, you know what's going on, then you can kind of make some big decisions. So the don't needs, easy, you can just get rid of those straight away. And then the nice to haves, well, have a look through them again. See, do they truly make you happy? Because if something doesn't truly make you happy, then maybe you can live without it. Yep. And obviously this is an unprecedented time. It's not forever, but maybe just for now, we can stop getting those things just until we're on a better footing.
Perfect.
And then finally, we've got our essentials. And even our essentials, we can tweak. First of all, we can see if we can renegotiate. We can phone our utility companies. We can phone our mobile phone providers. We can phone our internet providers and our insurance. And we can see if we can get a better deal. I'm sure they're willing to speak at this point as well. Yeah. If they can't, you can switch to another provider. So this is something that you can physically do, and it gives you much more power. You can also look at things like groceries. You can cut down on your groceries. And don't forget to look at your subscriptions, because sometimes they go on direct debit. You don't really know that it's coming out. So you can review those and see, well, you know, for instance, Netflix, you know, it's a great service, but maybe there's some great TV companies that have free services. So maybe at this particular point in time, we could do without that, just so that we can get through this particular period. So once we've got that and we've made our decisions, we can cut a lot of costs. So you can really save thousands, literally, by doing this exercise. So it's really, really recommended.
Wow, I mean, and it is. It does take a bit of work, and I don't love numbers and all, but you know, it has to be done, and we have to really take a good look and think, you know, what can we live without? And the interesting thing is, it might even, you know, looking at the silver lining of every situation, this might even start to form different behavioral patterns and behavioral habits that might serve us better in the future. So, you know, exactly. We can look at things that way as well, I suppose.
Totally. I mean, you know, Raw Energy is all about building healthy habits. And so absolutely, and it obviously it extends then. So once you've made those decisions, it then goes to the front line. So if you're in the supermarket and you're doing your shop, it's making that decision: do I need it? Don't I need it? If you're doing your online shop, do I need it? Don't I need it? And really making those at the moment in time decisions. It's not about thinking about it theoretically. It's about when you're on the front line making those final actual decisions.
Yep, absolutely. And as you said, I think it's really interesting that, and we'll probably see more and more in the next few weeks, the flexibility of different banks and other providers, and you will be allowed to do things and be more flexible than you'd ever have been before.
Definitely. Well, everybody's hurting and everybody really wants to help as well. So, I think they'll be much more willing to listen and be flexible, like you say.
Absolutely. And I suppose it would be remiss of me not to ask, but if this is not your area of expertise, feel free. But do you know much about, taking stock of what the government is offering now for people, or is that something that you'd like to?
Yes. I mean, it's not my total expertise, but I have been investigating it, obviously, because it's so pertinent right now. And there is so much assistance available. I mean, they've had $189 billion is up for grabs now. So it's definitely worth looking to see what you're entitled to and definitely claim if you can. You would find out more information on Centrelink, and obviously everyone's got specific requirements, but there are things like job seeker allowance. You've got your coronavirus supplement, which gives you $500 per fortnight. And also there's a small medium business relief as well as other things like getting early access to your super. So it's definitely worth getting in touch with Centrelink and seeing what's available for you. And don't be shy. It's not about claiming anything. This is really serious stuff. So
this is survival.
This is survival, exactly.
And also getting in touch with your accountant as well, I'm assuming.
Most definitely, yeah. They will have lots of information about this as well. And then, of course, if you're in debt, another thing, it's important that you talk to someone, and that we've got some great partners where people can really help you reduce and negotiate with your people that you owe money to, and also knowing your rights as well, which is really interesting as well, that you need to understand. But in the minimum, talk to the companies that you owe money to, and they will understand. You do need to communicate them just so that they understand where they are, and then they can put together a payment plan together with you so that you can actually fulfill your obligations. But do have that conversation.
Do the work. I mean, and I know, like, even for me over the last week and a half, it's been a slow journey to see things a bit more clearly, because we all start off in panic mode, and then it's cloudy, and then over time we start to take a few steps further back and start seeing the big picture. But it takes time, and as you say, you've got to look at your situation, your financial situation, and give yourself the space and the clarity to really decide what to do and when and how.
Exactly. I mean, things do become clearer over time, but obviously this is slightly open-ended. We don't know when it's going to end, which is the kind of most alarming part about it. Yeah. But we'll come to that in our next sort of thing, because there, I think we will see an end to it. It's not going to last forever. So I think that we need to really kind of focus on that, really, and just seek solace from that. Yeah. This too shall pass, so I think that's really...
Well, I mean, let's segue into that. I mean, everybody knows what the situation is at the moment, and all I can say is to everybody out there is great advice from Heather. Really just sit down and understand where you're at. Seek help from your accountant, from the tax department, from Centrelink, from whoever you need to talk to, friends and family, people that might be looking at into this in more detail. And do what you need to do. And as Heather says, it's about survival. It's not about pride. And we just got to all get through it, because the silver lining will be at some point visible when we come to the end of this. But let's segue into that. And I mean, in terms of the future, obviously this is going to end at some point, hopefully sooner than later. I mean, what can we start thinking about and preparing to capitalize on and be ready for when this does eventually leave us?
Absolutely. So once you're on that firmer footing, the question is, can you grow? Can you grow now? Will it be possible to grow your wealth in the future? And I suppose, just as I said before, I've been investing for years and I've been through all these different types of corrections. And I've also done a lot of deep analysis on corrections and crashes, really to try and understand, what causes them, how long they last, and who are the winners in those situations. And I guess my overall message is that long term, economies and stock markets, they recover. When you're going through it, it really does feel awful. It always does. And I'm sure we're not through it yet, and there will be more pain. But eventually it will get better.
Yep.
I remember there was the 1987, October 1987 crash.
Yep.
I did live through it, but I don't remember it as well. So I was really young, but doing an analysis on it, now, that was an interesting time, because that was the famous Black Monday, where stocks crashed almost 23% in one day, which is like the record. It's never happened since. Which was, it must have been absolutely devastating to live through that. How could you even ever recover from that? But it's quite interesting, because if you look at the charts go from 1926 to say the S&P 500, which is the US stock market, the top 500 shares. If you look at that chart and you look at 1987 and you look at that particular time, you can barely see where it happens. It's like a tiny little blip. You can honestly barely see it. And I think it's a lesson to just kind of realize that, no matter how bad it gets, it will recover ultimately.
Definitely.
So, and the reason, because humans and companies, they survive, they thrive. Companies are there to grow their shareholdings for their shareholders. That's what it's all about. It's all about growing value. And these companies that are in these indices, they are really good companies. And if they're not really good companies, they get dropped out of the indices and another one comes and takes their place.
Absolutely.
They are designed to move upwards. So, and because we've got, because normally economic crashes or corrections normally happen because of economic situations, but this is a different scenario because it's a catalyst, it's a virus. And so once that virus is gone and the catalyst is gone, then the markets are left to repair and just go back to how they were before. And the economic situation in the US was actually really good before this. It was never been better. There was low unemployment, the interest rates were low, inflation was low, and it's an election year, so it was in their interest to keep things really, really good. So as soon as that catalyst is gone, then it should just go straight back up to where it was. I mean, I don't know how quickly, but it should certainly go back in a very nice, positive direction.
Wow, absolutely. And I suppose, from a non-financial point of view, I think a great strategy would be just to really keep your customer relationships as strong as you can in this time. It's important always, but in a time like this, keep your customers as close as you can, help as much as you can, do whatever you can to keep that relationship alive, because you're going to need to be continually thriving and working and utilizing that relationship when this is over. So it's so easy to just kind of stick your head in the sand and crawl into a shell and, not want to reach out to your customers and your clients and everybody to really maintain those relationships. But I think it's something that is so important to do.
Definitely. And just be reassured that the best scientists in the world are all working together to look for remedies and cures and vaccines, but we're all self-isolating. If this all effort doesn't have a result, then there's nothing we can do. So, this will result in what we want it to happen. So, let's just hold in there and just be patient. Hold in there. And I know it's hard to say that if your financial situation has changed, if you're losing clients and you're out of a job, it's very easy to say that, but things will get better. So I think it's really important to focus on that.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
And also just a little plug for marketers out there. Like, I'm really passionate about marketing and digital marketing and social media marketing. And I think it's really important for people to step up their marketing right now, because everybody's attention is on all the different platforms that we use every day. People have got more and more time on their hands. People are doing work more digitally and remotely and using technology. So it's a perfect opportunity to really utilize those platforms to market yourself and create and develop and build brand again. And these brands, the stronger your brands are in the future, the better you're going to be. And it's time to build them now, because it takes time to build brand. So it's not time to stop marketing. It's time to market more.
Exactly. And obviously everything's remote, everything's online. So, you could just carry on doing it. There's nothing to stop you from doing it. And as you say, it's the ones that are visible now that people remember when it's all over and everything's back to normal again.
Awesome. But on to a lighter note, tell us a bit about your company and exactly what you guys do and how you do it. And I'd love to hear more about, the services you provide. And, hopefully when things get better, we can all take advantage of, some of the services that you provide.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I have got some other tips and tricks. I hope I have to say them, because it's really quite important that I want to get this message across. Mm-hmm. So there are some great contrarian investors that are quite useful to draw on their wisdom at this stage in time. So we've got someone called John Templeton, who is known as the greatest stock picker in the 20th century. Wow. And his motto is to buy stocks in maximum pessimism. Huh. I think it's probably safe to say that there's maximum pessimism right now. So that's definitely worth bearing in mind. Right. And also the famous Warren Buffett. I'm sure he is on an absolute spending spree right now, because that's what he does as well. He just goes and buys his favorite companies for dirt cheap. Yep. So it's really important to just think about that. And obviously it's the hardest thing in the world to buy stocks when everyone else is selling, and it needs an iron gut, as it were. But there are lots of things that can be done, and if at the very least to have an action-packed a list of your favourite companies to dip your toe in the next weeks or months. Okay, but also, I mean, there are plenty of other options. I just want to also tell people that there are things like gold, and there are winners. There are actually winners right now, even though it's kind of going down. There are winners as well. So that's something to note, like Zoom, for example, that we're on right now.
Yeah, Zoom is doing extremely well.
So it's that the market is still discerning, and there is still money to be made if you're kind of daring enough to do it. And there's other things like inverse ETFs, which kind of go up when everything else goes down. So that's got another thing to bear in mind as well. But sorry about my company. I mean, this is what I do. I help people clarify their financial situations. I help them with their mindsets to sort of find out what their money stories are. And I just look for opportunities, in a very holistic way to see opportunities either by saving and then also by, investing, and all different types of investments to kind of make the most opportunities you can. And there are always opportunities, even in the darkest days when you think, how could there possibly be opportunities? There really are. And, it's just worth bearing in mind that and holding on for dear life, and hopefully waiting until this storm has ended.
Absolutely. And it sounds to me that you're I wouldn't classify you as just a financial planner. You're much more holistic than that, aren't you?
That's right. Yeah, as I said, my company is actually a well-being company, so we sort of take that as the sort of benchmark. We sort of look for people to be well mentally and physically, and financial well-being being the number one cause of depression and anxiety in our society. So we want to make sure that people have that string to their bow as well as everything else. So
awesome. So I mean, that I think that's really important, because nothing lives in a silo. Everything really is holistic. and is connected to something else. So if we can address things in three-dimensional way, the more beneficial it is for everybody. Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And now, I think you wanted to mention something about a particular opportunity or promotion or something, or an offer that you were...
Yes, thank you. Yes, so on the 2nd and 3rd of April, we have a 2-part urgent briefing which goes through exactly what you can do in more detail and some very practical tips to be able to do that. So I'd love it if you could come along, all your viewers and listeners would come along, because I've got lots of ideas and things that you can practically do to arm yourself for the future and when we come out of this situation. So if you want to get involved, you just go to getrawenergy.co, so RAW, raw, and /COVID-19 briefing, no dashes. So I'll send you the link so that you can add that as well.
Definitely. I'll be definitely putting those links in the notes and in the broadcast out to social media and everywhere that the listeners and the viewers will see the podcast. But is there anything else that you want to leave us or leave the people with, in terms of just even a mental mindset tip or something that you want to leave us in this time?
Yeah, I just want to leave you with the thought that, everything is an opportunity, and even in the darkest days, there are ways around it. And, in the deepest depression, so in the Great Depression, there were more millionaires made during that time than any other time in history. Right. I think it's a case of just being creative, thinking that people are in pain, people really need help here. So what can you do to help people? Maybe you can start a business. Maybe you can do some of the things that I'm talking about in terms of investments. There are always things that you can do.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Heather. It was such a pleasure having you on the show.
It's absolutely brilliant being here.
And I learned a hell of a lot already. So I'm going to listen to this and re-listen to this and re-watch this a few times. So I urge everybody to really heed the advice of Heather, because she's got a lot of experience and she knows what she's talking about with things like this. So it's been an amazing experience. And again, I'm going to put all the show notes and the links together for everybody to access. So please check out Heather's event. Heather, thank you again.
Thank you so much, Darren.
Absolute pleasure. So for everybody out there, thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you very, very soon on a next episode.